Hello, I'm Dr. Gail Wilson, Professor and Chair of the Department of Communications Media at IUP. For the last couple of summers, groups of our students have worked with community members and businesses to help create content for this feature story television show, The Swoop. Last year, our students followed the Wildcat Regiment Band to craft a story about their journey as a Civil War reenactment musical group. This summer, the Wildcat Regiment Band played for the last time in a final concert after over 2 decades of battlefield performances, tours, and CD recordings. The band members ask our students to be part of that event by recording a final concert so that we can air it here on IUP TV. We are honored tonight to be showing that very concert to celebrate the legacy of the Wildcat Regiment Band.
Now today is a celebration. It's a celebration of an idea and a journey, of many journeys in fact. And it began with a father and his son and a great idea that they had. And that idea grew to include all of us here and many thousands of people that didn't know they were part of that journey. You see, the idea was to create something special and something historically relevant, a brass band. And then to use that brass band as a vehicle for which we could travel on. But because today is our last concert and our final concert, it does not mean that we have reached that destination. We've reached that destination hundreds of times before. The destination of the journey was always to take you, the audience, to special and specific places and events. And if only for a moment, to open your minds, your ears, and even your hearts to what a Civil War brass band really was. Now, the story of our band is quite remarkable. From its inception to its realization, we come from different communities, careers. Our men have become grandfathers, and our children have become adults. We have been to so many great places and met countless wonderful people. And yes, there have been a few hotels that we're not welcome back to. Those stories are for later. But we always have been and we always will remain a family. Again, today is a celebration for all of us to enjoy that first idea and the many journeys. We celebrate your support through the years as well as our own accomplishments. We celebrate the dedication of the band behind me and those alumni who are in front of me. And to celebrate that vision of our bandmaster. Ladies and gentlemen, I now introduce you that bandmaster and my friend, Mr. B.J. Pino.
Good afternoon. I'll do the best I can today, in the sense that I'll try not to hold you for the whole 4 hours. But you know, to try to put it out there up front, it's kind of difficult to take 25 years and put this in a little pill that we can get done in 5 minutes. It's not going to happen. So I do promise you a wide range of music. I promise you some expertise that I have grown very fond of over the years by this fine group in front of me and beside me. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed the Wildcat Regiment Band. We are the regimental band of the 105th Pennsylvania Infantry. The band's Sergeant Major is Mr. Sherman Good. There was only one in our 25-year history, and you're looking at him. And there was absolutely no need for any others to follow. He has been superb as far as being the true leader and just embodying the spirit of the organization. And as far as musicianship is concerned, very difficult to find another man with the talent that this guy has. Ladies and gentlemen, one more round of applause for this gentleman. The band's first sergeant is Mr. J.R. McFerrin. In 25 years, there's only been one. He's it. No need to look for another. One of the duties, of course, of a first sergeant is to make sure that everything goes just right. This is an attention to detail guy. This is someone that generally pours his heart and soul out, not only from his preparation personally with the music, but making sure that everything is done for the event to go off without a hitch. I couldn't have asked for a better partner beside me through all of this. So, ladies and gentlemen, one more applaud for Mr. McFerrin. Principal musician is Mr. Paul Rode. In this position, there have been two. His predecessor, Mr. Donald Ament, was indeed part of the soul and embodied this whole group organization with his skill and obviously his presence. But Paulie has been, besides, I guess we'll say by his side all of this time, and was natural with his skill and obviously his expertise to take on this extremely difficult role. Sons. Very much feeling as such. Mr. Paul Rode. Bandmaster. There have been two, both with the same name or similar. I'm actually junior. My dad and myself have had this pleasure and honor to be a conductor, a leader, whatever you would want to call us, of this famed organization. I understand we have our alumni, or at least some of them in the audience today. And if they would be so kind, we're going to call on you several times this afternoon, but would you kindly stand right now and be recognized? All alumni of the Wildcat Regiment. I thought you were going to be here, but I wasn't quite sure. But I'm glad you are. And you should have said, yeah, I know you are. But I didn't, when I was talking about the principal musician, I didn't get a chance to find you and have you stand and take your bow for 23 years or 22 years of, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Donald Ament. So, who can I credit this to? My father. Sunday mornings listening sessions were usually accompanied by making sauce or some other prime edibles for the Sunday dinner. But it was not unlike him in taking me at an early age, and he introduced me to all types of music, but especially to marching and symphonic band repertoire, and of course classical and operatic. I can still recall with our big RCA phonograph, which we felt very fortunate to have, and he would put these long playing records on, and he would all of a sudden come dashing out of the kitchen and say, now listen to this. What? But as a kid, you don't say what, you just listen. And all of a sudden this baritone passage, or how it just magnifies itself and the music intertwines. Needless to say, he was a wonderful dad. And he was indeed a gentleman, and as Casey Moore once said, he was capable of taking a pig's ear and making a purse out of it. He had that distinct ability of taking raw talent and making something work. He was a great musician, and he was a tremendous educator. So what did we try to achieve with the project? On the short term is what exactly we thought. We're going to do this for just a little bit. That was 25 years ago. The goal was, throughout our existence, however, searching for the method to create the ability to clearly translate to our current society the human experiences that occurred in the American Civil War. Simplified, we wanted to attempt to using accurate source material, original music, and instruments, all done to tell their story. And in many cases, how it influences and continues to influence us today. Music would be the catalyst, it would be the medium, and it would help us to accomplish this goal. A high level of authenticity was absolutely necessary. Thus, attention to detail in sight and sound was painstakingly made. And yes, indeed, we needed and received some great help initially. Inspiration and support, first and foremost, our families. They sacrificed a lot so that we could chase this dream down. And you have to understand that once we had gained footing, the most prominent place for a brass band to be on the 4th of July and on Memorial Day and in November, and the list goes on and on and on, is to be playing for the public. So we missed a lot of things, and I hope they'll forgive us. I would at this time like and be very pleased if our wives and our immediate family, Kathleen, of course, would you please stand and take your due? Please stand. In the beginning, there was Mark Elrod, Paul Mayberry, and Ed McDowell. Without their inspiration, without their never-ending support of music instruments, and just genuine friendship, this would have never taken off. And I am indebted to them for that. So it's time to get on to playing a little bit more music, and we're about to play an Ave Maria, I believe, from the opera Lurline. It's a beautiful arrangement by Gustavus Ingels that our good friend John Brookfield had the opportunity to edit and did a superb job with that. And you'll be hearing more about John in a little bit. So Lurline. As you'll notice, there's a lot of personal things going on with this music and what we're talking about today. Well, the French derivative of Lurline is Laureline. She's 3.5 years old. She's around here somewhere, isn't she? Can you just say hello to everybody, youngster? My granddaughter's name was inspired by this piece and by this opera. And my son, Bruno, had decided, he and his wife, that this was indeed a name that should be given to this child. So music wins again. The last thing that I have to touch base with on this before we actually perform it is we have a very nice surprise for you. The instrument behind me was found recently, within the last year, that is. 1 minute. Was found in an auction in Clarion, Pennsylvania. It looked nothing like this. It was actually strung with a piece of wire and crushed and rather broken. But it is a very unique instrument in the sense that we believe it actually has ties to the original band. It only took us 25 years. The instrument is inscribed on the bell, which is rather rare. And it begins by saying Thomas Wesley. Thomas Wesley was a resident of Brookville, Pennsylvania, but he wasn't a Wildcat. He was actually a member of the 11th Reserve Band, but he knew the Brookville boys. The second line says, a member of the 105th Infantry Brass Band. The third line says, presented by W.H. Gray, 1920. 1920 is significant. It is the last time the Wildcats will ever meet. It is their last reunion. The instrument was obviously presented by Mr. Gray, who was indeed a Wildcat at that time. The last line says, preserved by G.W. Heber. George Heber was a community activist. He is the founder of the Jefferson County Historical Association in the 1920s and had accumulated all kinds of things related especially to the Grand Army of the Republic. It is dated 1921. It'll be on display for you afterwards if you would like to see it, but I think even more importantly, would you like to hear it? Yes. Me too. It'll be the first time that an audience will hear this instrument in, you take a guess at it, okay? And it will be put into the able hands of our Sergeant Major, so let's just give him a second or two to get acclimated, and we'll play the Ave Maria.
Bandsmen, uncover.
Good afternoon. And it is a real pleasure to see everybody this afternoon, and we hope you are enjoying the concert and this celebration of over 25 years of the Wildcat Regiment Band. It gives us a great opportunity to think back and recognize people and think of people that we've encountered in these 25 years. So let me tell you a little bit of a story about the Port Royal Band. Many of you have heard of this band before. It started out as the 3rd New Hampshire Band and found itself stationed in Hilton Head Island during the war. In 1862, the federal government decided regimental bands were no longer needed. They were too expensive. They could give those men a rifle, perhaps. So the regimental bands were disbanded. But the leader of this band, Gustav Ingalls, hadn't given up. He went back to New Hampshire, recruited another band, which became the 2nd Brigade Band, sometimes called the Hilton Post Band or just the Post Band, more often, though, called the Port Royal Band. What is unique about that band is there are 3 sets of music books, band books, still available to us today. And we were fortunate to be reintroduced to that music of the Port Royal Band by a friend of ours and a colleague who has done tremendous work in digging through those band books and recreating that music and putting it into a form that we can play today. John Brookfield, thank you so much for all you've done for us. John? So it occurs to me that oftentimes the way we do things in this band is we hatch an idea, often late in the evening, often with some liquid refreshments. I'm not sure about that part, but we decided we should have a 3rd recording. We went through the process twice in different ways. The first time we recorded right in the studio, did all the parts right there. The second time we went to the Antietam battlefield and recorded. This time we decided we wanted to record the music of the Port Royal Band. We were assisted by Al Tier, our recording engineer, who is here today recording this concert, but we were more importantly assisted by 2 producers, Jack Stamp, formerly of the IUP Music Department here, and Jason Worsbit, and we owe them a great debt of gratitude for what they provided us on that recording. So thank you, Dr. Stamp and Dr. Worsbit. So having recorded this Port Royal music, we decided it's time to take it back to its roots. And with the very able assistance of a lady that we somehow became associated with from the New Hampshire Historical Society, Althea Barton, who worked diligently on getting us to make a trip to New Hampshire. So in May of 2015, we all got in our bus and went off to New Hampshire and played in all the little towns around Concord, New Hampshire, where this original band came from. It was a great thrill for us to have done that. We're about to play a piece from the Port Royal Band books. I mentioned to you Gustav Ingalls. He's the one who arranged many of the pieces in those band books and arranged this piece that we're about to play now, which is a full opera overture. It's the only one that we are aware of that's a full overture in any of the Civil War era music. We see many references to operas in quick steps and so forth, but not the full overture. And what Ingalls did for this particular piece and several other of the Port Royal pieces is wrote parts for woodwinds. So this afternoon, we're going to give you an opportunity to hear what that Port Royal Band would have sounded like with the full complement of brass instruments and some woodwinds. Are they all up here? No. They're about ready to come up here as I introduce them. And I'll introduce them, I think, top to bottom. Ashley Shank is our D-flat piccolo player. Now, understand, just like the brass instruments, these woodwinds that they're playing are period instruments and provide some real challenges to accomplish this music, so we really appreciate their work on it. On E-flat clarinet, Warren Dosh. On B-flat clarinet, Charlene Krakota. So the music is the Khalifa Baghdad. We hope you enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Well, only 3 hours to go. The one thing about a farewell concert, and what we can see in repertoire from existing 19th century bands, they did it their way. Having to see men that have spent some pretty horrific times together for over 4 years, many of them, being exposed to the elements, being exposed to disease and death, understanding, as we have taught so many people over the years, the regimental band just did not play music. They knew well what the call was when it said stack instruments, and we did. And then we started to work by gathering up our haversacks full of lint bandages and worked in squads of 5. And then we cared for the dying, removing them to a place where the surgeons could indeed work with them. This was not by any stretch of the imagination a glorious life, but they have left us a legacy, and they have left us with music that I have to think that the majority was written for their sanity. Music that we like to play helps us set the stage for accurate interpretation of a moment in time. May 21st, 1861. The war is over. Your president is dead. But the Union Army will gather in D.C. for a grand review, parading in fine military form and fashion for the last time down Pennsylvania Avenue, amidst huge crowds of dignitaries and civilian onlookers. The opera by Gounod, Faust. It premieres in 1859. Just happens to be one of Lincoln's favorites. Unfortunately, this, and like other music, he will never hear it. But a curious thing happens that day. And the theme of the Faust quick step, being the soldier's chorus in the opera, seems to be so very meaningful. It quotes immortal glory to our ancestors as it pays tribute to the soldiers of old. Very fitting as we look back on this day. This arrangement by David L. Downing is superb in style and form, to say the least. And quite honestly, I've not seen a Downing arrangement that I didn't like. On May 21st of 1865, 2 bands, the band of the 9th New Hampshire and the 56th Massachusetts, will join forces, like they had done on many occasions. They'll team up together and perform down that avenue. They said it this way. On marching at the head of our division, we played the Faust quick step. As we passed in review, we had intended to play that noisy door latch quick step, and quite honestly, discount all other bands. Don't you love that rivalry? But we arrived at the reviewing set stand so suddenly that the opportunity was lost, a great disappointment to all the boys. Personally, I think they picked the right one. Let's take a stride and a march down Pennsylvania Avenue. And I hate this microphone, and I'm just putting it on record. Okay. My conscience bothered me. It's not the microphone. It's my finger. The microphone's fine. This doesn't work. The next piece. How can you have a concert without a polka? Can't. Most importantly, it's an art form, the dance, that is indicative of the 19th century. Of course, waltz was king, as we all know, but that polka was running a good second, let me tell you. It was so popular that they were popping out of the woodwork when that bohemian folk tune, hit the streets of New York in the mid-1840s. And pretty soon, buildings, women, saloons, name it, dogs had their own polka. Some of them start to sound the same after a while. But this one is an interesting one. It's from the Port Royal Band book, and again done magnificently by John Brookfield. But what it is the Watch Hill. And Watch Hill is the southernmost point of Rhode Island. And it was named for that. And J.P. King puts this piece together, just a delightful little thing. As a matter of fact, I think we have a fellow here that was from that neck of the woods. Bill Aldrich, weren't you from that neck of the woods? Yeah, there's a Watch Hill native. We'll hear more about that guy in the near future. But the truth of the matter is, there isn't a time that I don't listen to this piece that I don't think about two fellows. I mean, that's what happens when you play this music and you do it for some time. But it is impossible for me to hear the Watch Hill Polka and not see Donovan. With that eloquent playing, and then his sidekick, Paul Rode. Just absolutely magnificent form, but just showing the true spirit. And then I think you might even get to hear the Roll Valley kid, Bob Scumeye. I always look at Bob and say, come on, give me a little bit of that Sagamore stuff. He himself, like my father for years, was a polka king, playing in many, many polka bands. And I think you'll surely enjoy this little piece that they do. A little bit about Paul Rode. Came to this band after finishing his student teaching with Nevin Saylor, who was in the band in 1992, and was recruited and came in 1992, because you did your student teaching in 91, right? He's been here ever since, as with his wonderful family. Ladies and gentlemen, after this, we're going to take a break, and we hope you will come back. The second half will go a little faster than the first, but we have some things to talk about yet, and of course, play for you. But let's enjoy the polka for the time being.